Hi, everybody. Today is Sunday, Mother's Day, and I'm spending part of my day getting my lessons ready for the week. So, a couple things. Today's screencast, we're going to be talking about two things. First, I'm going to be going over last week's Timed Right and kind of talking to you a little bit about that. They have been scored for you in the grade book. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some things that I saw that we're still working on, and I'm going to use that today today and tomorrow's screencast to kind of help you prepare for the next Timed Right, which is going to be either Wednesday if you're in second period or Thursday if you're in fifth period. So let's take a look at Schoology really quickly first. Okay, so here's our Schoology page and for today. So you're going to see for today, I want you to watch the screencast, and then I will have a little assignment for you in the bottom of this folder that is a completely optional assignment, but it's something that you can do. I'm going to give you a rhetorical analysis reading. It is not the one that you're going to be tested on, but I want you to do some of the steps that I'm going to walk over with you on that reading. And if you complete it and you want me to take a look at it, you can go ahead and submit it. It is not required. You can do it on your own and not submit it, or you cannot do it at all and just listen to what I have to say. It's totally up to you. But I will take a look at anyone who submits them and kind of give you a thumbs up or not via Schoology about how you did on it. Okay, so let's take a look once again at the a couple things. First, I've put what we're going to cover today, which is the steps in rhetorical analysis that you should take before you even write a single word. So the first step I want to talk about is reading the prompt and really understanding what the prompt has to say, which is, I think, a step that a lot of you missed out on because this prompt, The Great Influenza, those of you who took that one, is a little bit different than other prompts we've taken a look at. So let's take a look at that again. All right. So here's our prompt from last week. Following passage, this all reads the same, gives you the title of the work, the year, the author, gives you the subject matter, writes about scientists and their research. And then we are used to this part being like talking about like the overall purpose as far as the passage is concerned. But it ends with this sentence right here. In a well-written essay, analyze how Barry uses rhetorical strategies to characterize scientific research. So that prompt is telling me that I'm not looking for overall purpose. I'm not looking at to inform, to persuade, to demonstrate, or any of those things. I'm looking for how does he characterize scientific research? That means how does he create a character? Or what category does he put scientific research into? Or how would he define scientific research? So I know going into reading this that I'm not looking for like the overall purpose really of the passage, which is what it normally says in those prompts, which is what you want to watch out for. Instead, it says, how does he characterize scientific research? So that's the question that I need to answer in my thesis statement. How does he characterize scientific research? So what I've done is I've put on my little page here, my little notes page that I took after reading the prompt, characterize scientific research. That's what I'm looking for. And that kind of will help me guide myself through as I'm reading the prompt or the passage. Okay, so now what you're going to do is the second step that I have included on that is you're going to read through the passage searching for an answer to the thesis question. So if the thesis question is what it normally is, which is how does he present his purpose in explaining blah, 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 or what rhetorical strategies does the author use to prove his point that blah, 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 remember, your thesis statement should answer whatever that prompt question is. So I'm looking for answers to how does he characterize scientific research? Okay, so as I'm reading through it, my first read through, I'm going to like list all the different things that I see the characterization of scientific research. So I read the first paragraph, and the first paragraph tells me all of this right here is that scientists or scientific research is considered uncertain. So it's something that you cannot be certain about ever. Okay, so the first way that he characterizes scientific research is as something uncertain. Then he moves into here and he says, scientists must accept the fact that all his or her work, even beliefs, may break apart upon the sharp edge of a single laboratory finding. So the second thing is that he characterizes his research as fragile. The research is something that could break apart at any minute. Okay, then we move into all real scientists exist on the frontier, even the least ambitious deal with the unknown, one step beyond the known. Okay. So now he's saying that because he says it exists on the frontier, we're talking about scientific research as being a wilderness or an adventure or an unexplored land. And this whole section here is all about that unexplored land. It continues these two paragraphs right there is where he's dealing with that. Okay, then he comes into this section right here, which is still unexplored land, but then he presents scientific research as a series of puzzles to be solved. Like what's the right tool for the job is what he's asking. And so that's kind of like, what is the puzzle that he's trying to solve as a result of that? And he goes through different questions to lead us into the answer of what that is. And then finally, the last thing that I put in here, these last two paragraphs kind of talk about scientific research as being made, the point of it is making it easier for others to follow the path that you've created. And I kind of thought of that as being maybe a little, the reward is that it's unrewarding, that you do all the work and other people can follow what you've done without following the same rugged path. Okay, so then I've gone through, this is my first step, made sure I knew what the prompt had to say. Then I went through and I found answers to the prompt questions. One of the things that I wrote on the steps to this within our folder here of what you should do is that you read through quickly, trying to find answers to the questions posed by the prompt, then create a rough thesis that answers the prompt question. Do not write your introduction. You are so lucky because you guys get to use computers. Save your introduction as much as you can until the last 5 minutes or last 7 minutes of writing, because you want to make sure that everything that you write about in your passage can refer back to your introduction. And sometimes it looked like some of you just started and wrote all the way through from beginning to end, began with your introduction, wrote your body paragraphs and things like that, just like you would if you were writing on handwriting things. The cool thing about this AP exam is that it's not handwritten, that it's on a computer. So the best way to determine how to make everything cohesive is to save your introduction and conclusion for the end. Because as you're writing along, you might discover things about the reading that you didn't when you first did the first reading of it. So writing your soapstone first might be a little misguided, answering the thesis question first. So my rough answer to the thesis question is that Barry characterizes scientific research as uncertain, adventurous, fragile, and potentially unrewarding. Okay? Notice that if that's going to be my soapstone, I also have to come up with rhetorical strategies and why he does that. So your next step is to take notes on your strategies. So I'm going to be specifically looking for strategies that help him build these definitions, that scientific research is uncertain, that scientific research is something that's fragile. How does he do that? So when I go through it for the second time, I've decided those are the answers in each of the different sections on how he characterizes scientific research. Now I'm going to be looking for what strategies does he use. So for the first one, I've done a little line down to the bottom. Juxtaposition of definitions. Certainty creates strength. Certainty gives one something upon which to lean. Uncertainty creates weakness. Uncertainty makes one tentative, if not fearful. And tentative steps, even in the right direction, may not overcome significant obstacles. Okay, so that's setting us up that we believe that he thinks uncertainty is bad. But then he goes into He says, it is the courage to accept, indeed embrace uncertainty. So he begins by giving us this juxtaposition of differences to show us that scientific research is uncertain and that uncertainty is something that you have to embrace as a scientist. He does that by showing us that what we believe is the best thing to pursue, which is certainty, is actually not. So that juxtaposition, it contrasts what we believe with what is actually true. Okay, then we move into fragile. And so how does he show it that it's fragile? And he includes a metaphor to show fragility. His or her work may break apart on the sharp edge of a single laboratory finding. So he compares scientific work and laboratory findings to something that is breakable on a sharp edge. That really shows that fragility. You're walking, if you imagine yourself walking with a glass beaker or something like that, and you run into a laboratory table, like if we want to go literal, that would be terrible if something that you've mixed and you've worked on in your chemistry class for how long, and all of a sudden everything is broken and spilled out apart. So he uses those ideas, that idea of fragility, in order to show us that scientific research can also be fragile. The metaphor for sharp. He does that very well. Okay, now he goes into this adventurous thing. So he's got a lot of things in this section that shows that scientific research is in fact an adventure, an unexplored land, and a wilderness where you're never sure of anything. And he uses a lot of different strategies: metaphors, imagery, illusion. So let's talk about that. So the best among them move into a deep wilderness where tools they need to clear the wilderness to bring order to it do not exist. They probe. A single step can take them through the looking glass. This is a literary illusion, Alice in Wonderland. So it's a whole new world that you've never explored before, into a world that seems different. To create form, structure, a single step can also take them off the cliff. That whole thing is imagery, metaphor, and literary illusion. And that really brings alive to us his feeling of adventure. So we have that in there. Okay, then we go into what I said is a series of puzzles. And it is grunt work, tedious work, begins puzzling out what sort of tools you can use. So he uses rhetorical questions here to kind of give us the idea of how the scientific mind works. And those rhetorical questions create for us how we answer puzzles or series of problems or things like that that are meant to be solved. So rhetorical questions is another good strategy. Then we go into here these last two sentences or last two paragraphs, which kind of talk about how scientific research, this one in particular, a flood of colleagues will pave roads over the path laid. All those roads would be orderly and straight, taking an investigator in minutes to a place a pioneer spent months or years looking for. And that's that unrewarding, it's an unrewarding reward. So your reward is you make it easier for other people. There's not really any kind of, there's a rhetorical strategy. He continues this kind of idea of a metaphor, a flood of colleagues, that your scientific research is a road that for you is rugged and has been paved straight, things like that. And that kind of shows like your reward is to make it easier for other people. What kind of reward is that, right? So in the end, he characterizes scientific research as an adventure that may or may not be worth it in the end. And a lot of you touched on that, which is good, but you have to kind of consider, again, what the prompt is asking you to discover, which is how does he characterize scientific research? Okay, so what I want you to do, I'm going to take you back into here. Underneath this, the Great Influenza, I put it up there for you again. There's going to be another activity. I am posting another short rhetorical analysis reading with a prompt, and I want you to do something like this. Just your notes. What's the answer to the thesis question? What is the important phrase in the prompt for you to look for? What are some of the rhetorical strategies that kind of help you find the answers in each of the sections? I want you to think about it like that and just take some notes and outline onto the little activity that I'm going to be posting down there. Again, this is an optional activity. You don't have to do it. I would suggest taking about 10 minutes to run through the reading. Don't do it. Don't give yourself a long period of time, because you're not going to have a long period of time for the AP exam or for the timed write that you're taking on Friday. Once you start that timed write, you will not be able to pause it on Wednesday or Thursday. You won't be able to pause it, and you'll only have 45 minutes from start until finish. So you want to make sure you only take about 10 minutes or so to do your reading and your pre-writing, so you leave plenty of time for writing. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk to you about how to go about into the what, where, how, and when. What is the strategy? How does the author use it? Why is it successful in achieving your thesis? And then I'm going to kind of help you out with how to actually write that timed write in the amount of time that you have. Okay, good luck today, and I will talk to you more tomorrow.